6 steps to fix your browser problems. Hi everyone, Leo Notenboom here for askleo.com. I deal with questions about browsers all the time. And let's face it, it's probably the most used tool on our computers. It's our window to the internet, the World Wide Web. These are web browsers. And with so much of our information coming from and living on online websites, it's often where we spend our entire day. When we experience a problem that seems to somehow relate to our web browser, it can be very, very frustrating. Now, I have 6 things that I routinely suggest people do when they're experiencing a browser problem. I'm not going to say this will fix your problem because there's no way to know, but these are the most common ways of dealing with browser problems, and they're probably my most common recommendations for generic issues. Number 1 on the list, scan for malware. I'm not going to show you that because there's no point. You know how to scan for malware in your own machine. If you're doing Windows Defender, do a full scan of the machine. If you've got some other tool, use that tool to actually do a scan, a full scan of your entire machine, just in case. I don't say that this is the most common solution, but it might be the most important because if it turns up something positive, it actually finds malware, that's probably a bigger issue than just your browser misbehaving. So do that first, just get that out of the way. Hopefully it won't turn up anything, but if it does, yeah, that's important. Number 2, clear the cache. Clearing the cache is probably my single most common piece of advice for dealing with browser issues. Let me show you how that's done in Edge. It's similar in other browsers, but I've got Edge here to show you. What I'm going to do is type Ctrl, Shift, and the del key. Now, it may be the browsing data or clear browsing data item may be on your browser's settings menu. In the case of Edge, doesn't seem to be, but Ctrl, Shift, del seems to be a common keystroke that basically gets you to where you need to be across most of the browsers. What we want to do here is clear cached images and files. That's really all we need to do. Everything else, I suppose you could clear these things if you want to. They probably won't give you much of a problem. The only one that I want you to think twice about clearing are cookies. And I say that because A, it's not likely to help the problems, but also B, it's going to log you out of all of the sites that you are currently logged into if you clear cookies. The one I care about is cached images and files. And at the same time, make sure that if your browser offers you a time range, make sure that's set to all time. I'll go ahead and clear now, and poof, our cache will have been cleared. The cache can get confused, and that can sometimes manifest in all sorts of weird browser behavior. So it is, like I said, the very first browser-specific piece of advice that I tend to give people. Number 2 on that list is to disable your add-ons. Now, in the case of Edge, you can see that there's this puzzle piece icon. There are puzzle piece icons in some of the other browsers, depending on. And it also happens to be here in the settings menu. I'll go ahead and click on extensions. And then sometimes you need to go a second level to click on manage extensions, because that's what we want to do. Now, when I say turn off extensions, all I mean is literally turn them off, like I just did with 1Password. You don't need to uninstall the extensions. All you need to do is turn them all off. Then see if your problem reoccurs. If your problem goes away, then you know that it's probably related to one of your extensions. What you would then do next is turn them on one at a time, see if the problem comes back. If it doesn't, move on to the next one and turn that one on as well. This way, you're very, very likely to isolate whatever it is you're experiencing to a specific extension, and then knowing that, you can potentially deal with whatever that means. Of course, what it means will vary depending on the extensions. Now, if you turn off all of the extensions and your problem remains, turn them back on again. It's time to move on to the next thing. The next thing is your security software. This one gets to be a little bit more complicated because, of course, exactly what security software you're using and what features it exposes will vary. The important phrases to look for are things relating specifically to your browser, something called real time, which means it's actually trying to look at the information that's going to and from the internet and your machine. When it inserts itself, when security software inserts itself into that path, it can, again, sometimes cause unexpected behavior. Now, here I've got Windows 11 and Microsoft Security. I'll go ahead and fire that up. In my case, I tend to look at app and browser control because, again, we're dealing with our browser. And then we'll take a look at some of these other settings. These are all things that you can easily turn off for a little while. I am in no way suggesting you turn them off permanently. Again, much like extensions, this is something where you can turn off this particular piece of protection and see if that impacts the problem you're experiencing. If it does, then you know that that's where what the issue is related to. If it doesn't, great. Turn it back on, move on to the next feature. If turning these things off does not impact your problem at all, great. Turn them back on and we move on to the next thing. The next thing being reinstalling the browser. Now, in the case of all browsers but Edge, that's as simple as going to the Settings tool, Apps, looking for your browser in the list, and uninstalling it. Then, download the most current version of that browser and reinstall it. That may or may not resolve the issue. If it does, great, you're done. In the case of Edge, because it is so tightly embedded with Windows, it's not really something that you can uninstall easily. What I recommend you do instead, if you're running Edge, is to run either the System File Checker or perform a refresh reinstall of Windows that does not erase any of your data. That way, since it's part of Windows, if something's broken, that would probably fix it. Another very common piece of recommendation that I have is that you use a different browser. In other words, if you're experiencing a problem with Chrome or Edge or something like that, download a different one. Download Firefox actually is a strong recommendation for this experiment. Or if you're running Firefox and you have a problem, download Chrome and see if it happens there. The issue is that sometimes different browsers react to different problems differently. Some of them may not even have the problem. Understanding this can either basically be solved by using that other browser or using that piece of information as diagnostic to help you understand whether or not you need to be looking at something specific in your favorite browser. I want to put out a specific clarification that many browsers, Edge, Chrome, and many others, are all based on a common browser engine called Chromium. Firefox is not. And if you've got an issue, if you're going to try a different browser, I suggest you basically try the other technology. If you're using Firefox, try Chrome. If you're using one of the Chromium-based browsers, try Firefox. That will give you probably more information or give you the highest chance of avoiding whatever problem it is via a browser change. Those are the 6 things I recommend. Chances are one of them will have dealt with the issue you're facing with. Like I said, these are the single most common pieces of advice that I've seen help people resolve issues with their browser. Now, you've got the list and you can give it a try. For updates, for comments, for links related to this topic and more, visit askleo.com/20440. I'm Leo Notenboom, and this is askleo.com. Thanks for watching.